So they say that being the president of the United States is one of the hardest jobs that you can have as a human being. You are titled as the leader of the free world. You will have the weight and responsibility of 300 million citizens, plus, if you include diplomatic and foreign affairs, on your shoulders with every decision that you make. And it's one of those things that takes a lot of gumption and follow through and responsibility and accountability and just wait. So I'm not surprised of the current events. If you haven't heard by now, which you probably have because it's all over the news, our current president, Joe Biden, has decided that he is not going to run for office next election. He apparently has endorsed Kamala Harris as the incumbent, or I guess the nominee for the Democratic Party. And there's a lot to unpack here because for me, I believe that one of the greatest things about being an American citizen is the fact that we have the power of choice. I may not agree with your choice, but I should be able to choose what I want to do with my politics, my family, my body, my money, whatever. I should be able to choose what I want to do with it. It may not be the best decision, may not be the right decision, but I should be able to have a choice. And this goes all the way through our Constitution, all the way down to this election. And before I continue, I want to say that typically we don't talk about politics on this channel. We're not a political channel. We don't talk about, we might drop a Trump or a Biden in a video from time to time, but we don't make content that's about politics. We make other content and we just talk about stuff. But this is to be the first time that I'm really just talking about this on this level. For people who are fans of this channel and expect me to talk about the new Slim Shady album, I apologize if this is not the content that you're expecting. But I just need to get this off my chest because I think it's important for a guy like me, a 40-year-old black man in America trying to figure this out. It's kind of a clusterfuck right now, just to be quite frank about it. And going back to the choice thing, it's this thing that's where chances are Kamala Harris will probably wind up as the nominee. But I definitely believe that we as the American people should be able to have an emergency primary to determine and vote and have a say in the matter. Because right now what you're seeing is happening is that you're seeing like the oligarchy like really control who has the power here. Now, I don't necessarily have, well, actually I shouldn't say that I don't have things against Kamala Harris, because there are things against Kamala Harris that I don't like, and we're not here to talk about that. I'm not mad at the choice because she's the obvious choice, right? And she hasn't been chosen yet. We still have 3 or 4 weeks before we have the DNC. This is unprecedented historical waters. The last week in American history is literally like one of the craziest weeks in American history ever. And you're seeing this happen in real time. And we're all just living through this. So there's a lot of reactions. There's a lot of anger. There's a lot of happiness. There's a lot of relief. It's really interesting seeing all these emotions kind of swirl around right now because it's like, it's a testimony of one, the state of America right now, to where what needs to happen, and this is on both sides, whether you're red or blue, Trump or Biden, there's a lack of unity on either side. Like half the party on the Republicans don't rock with Trump. Half the party on the Democrats don't rock with Biden. A lot of infighting, a lot of like whisper shit going around. And it's disgusting, man, because I feel like, and I might be wrong, I might be sounding like an old head as a 40-year-old, but I feel like in the 80s and 90s, even though people didn't like each other, there was still a let's get this done for the sake of the American people. And right now what you're seeing is like, we got to get this done for the sake of our pockets, for the sake of our wallets, for the sake of our futures. Like, F the people, right? Because if this was for the people, then immediately there should be an immediate primary election going down within the next week. Immediately. Like that should have came with Biden's announcement. But instead, with Biden's announcement, he went ahead and co-signed his VP, the person that he chose. And like I said, I could talk about Kamala Harris all day, but it's just not fair to the American people for us to not be able to have a say in this matter. And when it comes to Biden in general, I do think that his decision was the right decision. I don't believe that we should have an old president. That goes for Trump, that goes for Biden, that goes for Sanders. If you're over the age of, for the sake of this conversation, let's say 70 years old, then you should not be running for president. I think that you should be young. Not young necessarily, but you should be able to have a dexterous understanding of how to run the fucking world. We're talking about the infrastructure of our country, from everything from the military to passing laws and presidential orders, all the way to foreign affairs and dealing with things like overseas. Like, you got to be sharp. You got to be sharp. And when you compare the two candidates, just based off of aesthetics, Trump is sharp. And I'm not trying to co-sign him or anything, but he's sharp in the sense that he will say things with clarity. He doesn't mumble, he doesn't stumble, he's not like, et cetera, so forth. The cognitive decline of Biden is very, very clear. And I'm glad that he made the decision to do what he needed to do for the sake of the country. But with that said, I think that this should be passed to the people. This shouldn't be an inner democratic thing. I should be able to go vote, or whoever needs to go vote, to figure out who they think is the best candidate. It shouldn't just automatically go to Kamala Harris. And then there's the question of, well, who's Kamala's VP? And it's a slippery slope of just this continual control, right? Because even if you look at Biden, Biden is just an extension of Obama, right? And you have these like oligarchies, you have these people who are just like trying to stay in power for as long as possible. Trump is a prime example. He constantly brags about being like, oh, well, you know, Trump 2028, Trump 2032. And not necessarily because of him running, but because of his family, right? His son might run, or Ivanka might run. Like, we have to create laws or structures that prevent basically, you know, these kingdoms that these not only families are making, but corporations are making as well. Because what corporations do is they get their nails dug into these politicians, and then they pass laws that incentivize. And that's what the whole lobbying thing is all about. Lobbying is essentially being like, hey, here's money, do what I want. And I'm not saying it should be illegal, because there are positives to lobbying, but the regulations behind it just don't exist for the most part, to where anybody can be manipulated with enough money or enough incentive or enough power, et cetera, so forth. You look at the track record of our presidents and all the stuff that's kind of coming out after the fact, and it's like they're all shady, man. And I don't really know what the ultimate solution is. Like, I think that our country might be on a downward turn. I'm always an optimistic person, but I'm zooming out. I'm looking at both sides. I'm looking at both parties. I'm looking at what's happening with our people and how people are reacting and how violent people are and how angry people are right now. And it's like, man, we might be on the verge of some doom here. I think regardless of whoever wins the election, like, especially if Kamala Harris ends up being elected, simply because of the fact that she's a female and she's not white. And that's going to light a powder keg for a lot of just straight up Christian white people who are like, F that. Trump is the opposite, where you have basically everybody else hating this man, to where if he gets elected, you're going to see a powder keg explode on that side as well. So we are in a very kind of screwed situation. Now, obviously, the solution in any other situation would be, oh, well, why don't you just vote for a third option? But voting independent, voting third party is completely useless. All it really does is take away the vote from the other two parties. And our two-party system is fucked. And there's a good video that I actually posted on my Facebook page that talks about how the Democrats are basically setting themselves up to lose, because it's part of this whole giant conspiracy of keeping the balance. So there's always a villain. And if there's always a villain, then there's always reasons to pass laws and incentivize the people. And you'll see this happen in real time, to where it's like, there's always a bad guy in politics, whether it's Trump, whether it's Biden, whether it's Obama, whether it's whoever. There's always a villain. There has to be a villain. It's part of the story. If there's no inner villain that people can attack, then all of a sudden you have reasons to focus on other things and get things done. But if you distract people with a villain, whoever that villain is, it gives a reason for people to be distracted and attack that person and be like, that person is bad, that person is bad. And it ends up being a whole series of events where you start to see the patterns over and over and over and over and over again. It makes you kind of sick, because you want to be able to just have choice, but you feel like your choices are being taken away. Not just like with politics, but with our autonomy, if you want to go into that, which we won't in this particular video, but just our bodies, our minds, our education. It's all being manipulated and structured in a way to design to keep us complacent and angry. And as long as we're complacent and angry, which is kind of like a contrast, we're confused, we're distracted, we're not focusing on the big things that need to get done. And so it gets to a point where it's like, man, we just might be screwed. I don't know. That's just me venting. I don't know. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Do you have a better option for VP, or sorry, for President of the United States? What do you think about this Biden situation? What do you think about everything that's been happening lately? We're living through historical times. I'm telling you, this past week is one of the craziest weeks in American history, period. And you're experiencing it right now. So that's the reason why I made this video. I feel like I needed to speak on it just to have my little stamp on it. Like I said, we're not going to turn into a politics channel. We're not going to start talking about all kinds of politics. I just needed to get this out. So if you guys are expecting more gaming videos and more reaction videos to new albums and all that, that's still coming. We got a lot of content coming. But yeah, I would love to hear your guys' thoughts on this. I love y'all. Stay safe. Peace, love, and respect.